Hi everybody, my name is Elise Tyler. I'm a communications student here at Tuskegee University, and I have the honor of introducing our special guest, Dr. Bill F. Indy. He is a world-class educator, a poet, playwright, storyteller, critic, editor, historian of ideas and mentalities, a fellow of the Booker T. Washington Leadership Institute, and professional bidirectional English to French and French to English translator. The Library of Congress catalog notes that he has 48 works and 253 publications in 2 different languages, which appear in over 23,388 libraries worldwide. Bill F. Indy is a well-respected university professor here at Tuskegee University, where many of his students appreciate him, and he's known as Uncle Indy. So today I have the honor of sitting with him and asking him about his writing journey as an American-Southern Cameroonian, and we're just going to ask questions pertaining to his writing journey and, his inspirations and motivations that brought him here today. So how are you doing, Dr. Indy?
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Tyler, for this very generous presentation that you've given of me. It is wonderful to be here with you. And I'm delighted to take the questions that you have for me. Thank you.
Of course. So I kind of just want to start off with you giving a little background about your publishing. Like, how did you get into publishing, and what was like the first piece of writing that you published?
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Tyler, for inquiring, for taking interest, first of all, in the work I do as a writer, not just as a teacher. I started writing a long time ago. I can remember I was the equivalent of what you call the 10th grade in the United States, which in the English or the Anglo-Saxon system we call Form 3, when I started writing. And I had written for many years before ever publishing. I knew very well that I had some kind of a calling to write, but I never let that, overpower any other thing that I had to do or any other pursuit I had. But I kept the focus, I kept writing, and I understood very well that maybe if I'd started publishing a lot earlier at a younger age, it might have gotten the best of me. So I decided to write and write and write and write. And for many years, I kept my writings to myself. And keeping my writings to myself cost me a fair bit because in a computer crash, I lost about 700 poems. That's about the equivalent of 10 books. But that did not stop me, and it did not deter me. I know for a while I was like, what is the point writing? I slowed down for many years. But when I had finished my studies, which for me was the priority, I decided to embark on the journey of publishing. So my very first publication was a collection of poems, which I'm privy to share, to show, which is K-Crazy Trees in the Storms, K-Crazy Trees in the Storms, and other poems. Well, if you flip open the very first few pages of the book, or the title page of the book, you would read in it that these are poems composed from 1984 to 2006. So it took me well over 22 years of writing to start publishing. And when I started publishing, the works were greeted in a very special way. I was flattered first. Then I realized, well, people just appreciate the work for what it is. You see, because I had some reviews from some critics and poets, and the editor who actually reviewed the book, first of all, requested me to, to reconsider the book because it was too thick for a book of poetry with over 104 poems. They said it was 104 poems too many. I should cut it. I said, no, my experience is traveling around the world doesn't warrant me to do it. And they told me, all right, you might want to frame the poems into themes. I said, I can split myself into compartments. I can compartmentalize myself into different sections because it is just a whole. So the work speaks of the experiences of the poet. So my first work was Crazy, Trees in the Storm, and other poems. Thank you.
That's actually a great response. I like that, like the whole story that comes with it. And it kind of brings me to my next question about your global experiences, because I know that you've lived in places like France, Canada, Australia. So how have those experiences enhanced your writing?
Wow.
I think like are already an inspiration and influence, just because you lived it, but how
No,
specifically,
no, thank you, Ms. Tyler. Look I'm very happy you asking me this question because there is something about writing most people who approach or who conceive or think about writing do not immediately get. And it is just the idea that there is no writing that is born out of nothing. It means that writing is always inspired. It could be inspired by an event. It could be your place of origin. It could be even a journey. It could be a travel. It could be where you are. And talking of my travel experiences, I would just like to draw from a very respected French philosopher on whose shoulders I stand, given his, first of all, militancy, given his wisdom, given his role as a revolutionary and somebody who actually moved the French Revolution to where the French Revolution got and to the far-reaching effects of the French Revolution. That is Voltaire. Voltaire once said, wisdom is on the other side of the mountain. If you want to acquire wisdom, you must travel. And you asking me about my travels, yes, I've traveled. I traveled first. Let's talk about Africa. I didn't just travel to France, Canada, and Australia. I traveled extensively across Africa. I spent time in Nigeria and traveled extensively in Nigeria. It is one thing, when I meet a Nigerian or Nigerians, I jokingly tell them, I'm not Nigerian, but I know your country better than you do. And I don't say that to be arrogant or to be rude, but I just state a question of fact because of about the 37 states in Nigeria. I've traveled across at least 30 of them. I have experiences in them. So now to your question, how have my global experiences of living around the world shaped my writing? I would simply say the travels around the world have helped me to follow various paths of sociopolitical despair. When I talk of sociopolitical despair, You might be wondering, because some people feel sociopolitical despair is something of the third world. It is something that belongs only to Africa. It belongs only to some poor nations in this world. It is everywhere. The management of it is just different. I have followed this sociopolitical despair, and as a writer who is also steeped into the belief of what writing should be, inspired by another French philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, I have moved my works from the path of sociopolitical despair to the path of humanist hope. Because in my writings, what I strive to give humans is to give them hope. Because when you look at the way the world is, you would think there is no reason to live on earth. The world might have its very ugly days, but it is a beautiful place to live in. Even just the fact that you and I can sit here and carry this conversation, it is such a wonderful thing. And if I would continue still on the experiences, you would realize that in my writings, I strive as much as possible to celebrate human concerns, from love, which is the first very common feeling, right, that we express. Birth, we are alive because we were born. Death, we live because we shall one day die. Innocence, when we are born, we are like a clean slate. Experience, we grow and we acquire them. Childhood, adulthood, I celebrate even the village where I grew up. I celebrate the cities. I celebrate man. I celebrate nature, to politics, society, and culture. So that is because all of these things are things that characterize humans. And if you move from one continent to the other, you meet people indulge in the same experiences, and that alone is something a writer should grapple with. Thank you.
Thank you. I really like that answer. It reminds me of my mentality of flipping the negative into a positive. How you said taking the political despair and changing it into humanistic hope.
Yeah.
So that'll bring me to my next question about you being the historian of ideas and mentalities. So I guess I would say, like, which kind of came first? Like, did you know you wanted to do ideas and mentalities? Because you describing, like, how that influenced your work, like, around the world, it sounds exactly like ideas and mentalities to me. So did you go off knowing this? Or is this something you acquired over time? What is ideas and mentalities? How did that come about?
All right, thank you very much. Talking about the history of ideas and mentalities, when I say I'm a historian of ideas and mentalities, besides being a poet, a playwright, and all what you listed, right? The history of ideas and mentalities is a very catchy, interdisciplinary area that deals with either the origin of ideas and the evolution of the ideas through time. It is like you pick ideas and you do a diachronic study. When we talk of diachronic study, it is how it evolved from beginning till where it is, all right? It is as opposed to what we call synchronic study, which studies an idea within a specific period. But we look at the idea across time. And the whole idea it started when I got involved in my graduate school research. I involved myself in researching, in doing comparative literature initially, and I was so much interested in the works of John Milton, who is reputable and reputed to be a Puritan poet, to be a revolutionary poet, to be he is the poet par excellence, you see? And my research in the areas of Milton had to do with the emblematic revolutionary figure in his works. And the whole idea of the emblematic revolutionary figure in the works of Milton stemmed from the fact that Milton created characters like Samson, inspired from the biblical Samson, then moved on to creating in Paradise Lost, Satan and the fallen angels. And all of these characters seem to share something in common: rebellion. And as a young man, like every other young person, when you are that age, you see yourself, you think you have it all, you want to be this, you want to be that, you want to be the rebel, you want to be the bad guy, okay? So I was interested in knowing who these bad guys are, what is moving them, all right? What underlies their wanting to be bad guys? So what happened is, after I'd done my master's degree and I prepared my doctoral coursework, I wrote some very interesting papers on the topic. But my PhD advisor, who was such a wise man, having observed me, I give him a shout out, Professor Tuel. I know he's retired and somewhere in Morocco now. He just looked at me and said, Bill, I know you are interested in this, and what you are working on, you are onto something. You really know you have something new you want to bring in this area. But all I can advise you is that Milton has been studied for too long, and people have written exhaustively on Milton. The good idea you have on Milton might not be well appreciated as other ideas. I said, so what do you mean? He said, well, I have studied you, your temperament, what you like. You seem to love peace, even though you're looking at rebellion. You are somebody, why don't you explore the idea of peace? And look at some movements that have heralded peace on earth. Why don't you think about that? And I said, well, I think that's something I can work on. I can handle that. And we finally settled down on the idea of peace movements, and especially peaceful nonviolent protest. And everything pointed towards the Quakers. And the Quakers, who were like the original anti-slave activists from the very inception of slavery. You see? So I had to dig into the idea of peace movements and looked at Quaker contribution and everything they had, contributed to humanity. So talking of the history of ideas and mentalities, it is almost like looking at the history of philosophy. What philosophy undergirds peace movement? How did it start? Who were involved? How was it well received? How is it even received today? All right. how is it received today? How are people handling or struggling with it otherwise? So that's exactly what I can tell you about the history of ideas and mentalities. There is much more we can talk about that history, especially if we have to narrow it down to the Quaker movement I studied, or I have studied, written book chapters, translated some of their works in. I can say a whole lot because even all of the Western economic principles today, modern economic is Quaker principles, so to speak. And we might even look at the US Constitution. I would have to say something about that before I stop my reflection on the question. The US Constitution, what most people do not know, most Americans do not know that the US Constitution was just an adaptation, an update of the Constitution of the state of Pennsylvania, which was a Quaker state, which was founded by the Quakers, and the Quakers had a constitution that allowed everybody to peacefully coexist in spite of their differences in religion, sexual orientation, race, and every other thing. You see? And when the 13 colonies chose to unite, they didn't know what kind of document would keep them bound together. And the state of Pennsylvania said, well, we have a constitution. You guys can come and sit here and let's work on the constitution following what we have in Pennsylvania. Everybody is happy in Pennsylvania, the Muslims, the Presbyterians, the Methodists, the Amish, the Quakers, and that's why you have Philadelphia, which is Latin for the city of brotherly love, okay? For the Quakers, and if you look at the number plate in Pennsylvania, it is the Quaker state. Okay, I'll pause right there and take another question.
I like that, because I don't really know much about Quakers, so I think that's a nice fun fact, because even you just brought up Amish, like all those cultures that we know about but don't really know about because their history is not enforced enough. That was actually pretty cool. So since we just talked about the origin of your interactions with ideas and mentalities, I kind of want to go into your book, Environmental Friction, for a second.
Okay.
Talk a bit about this. You can kind of just start off, telling me a bit about what it's about, and then I have some questions, just.
All right. Thanks a whole lot, Ms. Tyler. Environmental friction has to do with my concerns about the environment. If you look at the R in the friction, it is in parentheses. It is in parentheses. And the parenthesis there is to read environmental fiction or environmental friction. And the subtitle talks of the illusion of progress and the progress of illusion. And this collection of poems are poems about the environment. What they do is to address human encroachment on the environment because of human greed, because of human willingness to overexploit the environment. By doing that, they are creating the friction. However, when it comes to environmental problems and global warming, you have a fringe group or a fringe group out there that would tell you environmental problems are just fictional. They do not exist. And through the writings, I try to portray how human beings, by encroaching on nature and thinking they are reaping benefits, are actually working towards their own doom. So that is basically what this collection is about. I know one might say, why did you have to write about environmental friction when so much has already been written about it? Okay? But the poet has the obligation to take a stance, to show the universe its ugly face, if it has an ugly face. The poet has the responsibility to show the world beauty if it is beautiful. And if the world is ugly, don't stop singing its ugliness, because for the world to change, if the world doesn't take cognizance of the fact that it is ugly, nothing is going to be done. The world might simply think, oh, well, everything is okay. But that is not the way poets function. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is just that desire of a poet to challenge the human blunted perception of reality. Because human beings don't seem to understand that there are certain things that appear to be real just because of the illusion. And that's why you have that subtitle, The Illusion of Progress. It is not really progress, but the illusion of it, all right? And that illusion is leading us to the progress. We see the illusion actually progressing with the environment being destroyed day by day. Anybody who lives in the United States would know that every season they tell you hurricane season. Just this season, imagine how much destruction has been caused by those hurricanes. And you will tell me, oh, it is just a natural occurrence. It is not a natural occurrence. It is nature responding to human recalcitrance, to human stubbornness, to human shameless exploitation of nature.
I agree. And I really took a liking to the poems that were in this book.
Okay.
Would you mind reading one of them for us, just so we could get a little taste?
Well, thank you. I would not mind reading one of them, but if you have read, is there any specific one you want me to put my voice to it?
Let's see. I liked a lot of them, but I think, let's see. My one that I really did like was The Rains and Their Love on page 19. This one kind of rang some bells for me, so that would be great.
All right, thank you. I hope my voice is good enough. I always tell, the joke I tell when I read my poems is that I don't really like the sound of my voice, because if I like the sound of my voice, I'm going to be a musician, right? But nonetheless, let's listen to the rains and their love. The rains jilted their love for many years, and for many years the earth embraced fears. For she knew when they came, they would wash her clean, as well as overflow the river banks, that for these years have starved tenacious Homo sapiens, embracing salacious ideas, teeming and humming in their heads with bees who turn around and sting the nerds. Calculation after calculation led them to draw a hollow conclusion. Nature's anger can be contained by man, who is driven by supply and demand, an equation that spikes had to crack nuts and proves the wise man can also be nuts.
I really like that one. I really like that. I just wanted to, hear that one out loud because it hit home for me just a little bit, especially when you said when the bees sting the nerds. Everybody that just because we doing all this research that nature doesn't have a say in it,
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that. So moving on, I want to know a bit about your publishing work and its correlation with you being a professor at Tuskegee University. Can you tell us a bit about that?
All right. Well, I would like to thank you for that question. And I know it is a question I would start by making clear that being or walking the hallowed grounds of Tuskegee University is an experience for me that money cannot buy. It is an experience that is worth living once in a lifetime. I am saying it, and I will give you a little background story prior to my coming to Tuskegee and my being in Tuskegee and those in whose footsteps I'm walking. I will talk about that. Then I will talk a little bit about maybe my writings here in Tuskegee. And what I want to draw attention to is the fact that as a young man freshly out of college, I started teaching high school, and I stumbled on Booker T. Washington's work, Up From Slavery. Read Up From Slavery, was so passionate, and I felt every Black man, every Black child, every Black woman should read Up From Slavery. There was a prescribed textbook for me to be teaching, to use to teach English. I simply discarded the book and used Up From Slavery as the model for teaching English. I taught Up From Slavery with such a passion that students in that school started calling me Booker T, to the point that they never knew. Most of them, if you tell them I'm the Booker T they used to call in high school, they would not even remember my real names. So when I had the opportunity to come to Tuskegee, it was like, gee, to go and walk on the same grounds as Booker T. Washington. Fate already has it that students started calling you Booker T. Why not just go and just walk, just be around, breathe some air where Booker T used to breathe? Okay, I had to come to Tuskegee. But my being in Tuskegee is almost like another big challenge as far as writing is concerned, because in Tuskegee, there are some big names in African-American writing, or let me just say in literary writing, that to fit in their shoes, it is so challenging. Ralph Ellison, that's a big name. That is the American writer who changed the dynamic of American writing in the 20th century. He started his debut here in Tuskegee. So I'm walking in his shoes. All right? I'm not forgetting Ralph Ellison's very good friend, Albert Murray. Albert Murray is another big name in writing. And now to walk in their shoes and to do what I'm doing here is quite a humbling experience. I know just being in Tuskegee is an experience, as I say, money can buy. I have tried to explain when I teach my students that Tuskegee is exactly a gold mine that is sitting underneath a dumpster. I don't mean a dumpster in a bad way, all right? But if the dumpster covers your gold, then it is a rich place. That's where you want to forage, okay? And I'm in Tuskegee. For the 10 or so years I've been here, that's 9 to 10 years I've been in Tuskegee, I can, without bragging, say more than 2/3 the works published were published while here in Tuskegee. It means Tuskegee has something to offer to me as I have something to offer to Tuskegee. Thank you.
So, since you feel so strongly with your publishing work through Tuskegee, or not through Tuskegee, but you know, like around in Tuskegee, the inspiration, I should say, through Tuskegee, would you be open to maybe starting like a club or some type of, not organization, but organization that will help the residents, students, or anybody that wants to publish their work, like, you know, people who are passionate about writing, do so, or do the same?
Well, thank you very much. That's been my greatest ambition and dream. And when I say ambition, I know that word is very loaded. It could be very, very pejorative. I'm not ambitious in the pejorative way. I would say it is my dream to be able, while here in Tuskegee. You're asking that question, I would pause and answer it the other way. I want to point out something I've been doing in Tuskegee since I got to Tuskegee, and I'm working on it, which is, since I came to Tuskegee, I have been encouraging every single Tuskegee University student, and I am still encouraging them. When you would share share this with your viewers, let them understand that I am collecting poetry from Tuskegee University students, Tuskegee University alums, Tuskegee University faculty, Tuskegee University staff, everybody who has a connection to Tuskegee. I am collecting their works about their experiences here at Tuskegee. And the reason I am collecting that is because Tuskegee University is not an ordinary university like any other university. This is a university packed with history. This is a university that I feel, not because I'm in Tuskegee, I say it to a family who come visiting, right? I wish every Black man on earth could visit Tuskegee for just 24 hours and understand the history, the rich history, how in this city, people sat and thought that they could train to be fighter pilots when they said we were not fit, fought and won the Second World War for us. I need them to know there is an institution where 75% of Black veterinary doctors in the US are trained. I need them to know that Tuskegee University as an institution has trained many more officials in the US Armed Services than all the military academy put together. I would like them to come to Tuskegee, right? And just walk around and see this institution that was founded by Blacks for the education of Blacks and for everybody worldwide. I would need even those in Africa to understand that without Tuskegee University, the political party in South Africa, African National Congress, would not have been founded if not of Booker T, who gave the blueprint to Jacob Batini Zuma to go and transform the South African Native People's Party into African National Congress. He did not say it was South African National Congress because Booker T was a Pan-Africanist par excellence. So I can tell you about Tuskegee till tomorrow, okay? Mm-hmm. And the last thing I would say about Tuskegee, myself and my writings, is that I am happy to be at an institution that connects everybody on this planet. Mm-hmm. And you might ask, how does Tuskegee connect everybody on this planet? The polio vaccine was developed here, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody is taking the polio vaccine, and they use the cells of Henrietta Lacks, who was a Tuskegee woman. So there is nobody on earth who is not connected to Tuskegee. So I am happy to be here. The work I do, I think I am working towards creating a kind of writing retreat here in Tuskegee, mm-hmm. where people could come, spend time, a month or two, just sit without having any other worry. All they need to do is just think about their writing, wake up in the morning, we could have like little workshops, we could take a stroll by the lakeside, come back, eat lunch, they relax. In the evening, they do their writings. And, by the time they're leaving, they present whatever work they've done. And we see how we can move such works for publication.
That actually sounds very interesting. This interview is going really well. All your answers, the vision that you're giving, I'm loving it. I think that it's a very bright vision. I love it. I guess I actually would want to know if you have any advice for any young people who wish to embark on like a writing journey, like maybe similar, do you have any advice that you would give them?
All right. Yes, there is a lot of things to say to young people who want to write. Because writing, I'm going to borrow from one of my very good friends, who is a poet from Fiji, Sudesh Mishra. He's a Fijian poet, and Sudesh says poetry, he talks of only poetry as a journey on a straight and crooked road. But I am saying writing is a journey on a straight and crooked road. And what I'm saying, or the advice I'm trying to give young people here is, if you want to embark on writing, you don't want to embark on writing because you need to write and make money. Write because you have, one, the passion for writing. I normally, even in my teaching, tell students about my theory of the 5 P's. And the 5 P's have to do with the idea of passion. It has to do with persistence. It has to do with perseverance. It has to do with patience. And it has to do with performing. If you miss any of the P's before performing, you will never perform. And I would explain each of the P's down the line for you to see how it fits well with the temperament of a writer. Like every other endeavor you want to engage with, you must be passionate. When we talk of you must be passionate to the fullest. But because you are passionate about something doesn't mean you would automatically do it. There would be moments, right? You might happen to have obstacles. And I'll give you an example, all right? Nowadays, if you are a poet who is unknown, guess what? You're not going to have a publisher just picking your work and publishing it. You might even have a bestseller collection, but you are unknown and nobody wants to venture or to risk with an unknown author. Now you are left to your own design. You might not have money to self-publish. Now your passion is gone. But if you have a little bit of persistence, which means just keep doing what you are doing because you know it is the right thing. Just keep at it. Don't even relent. Just keep writing. You remember I told you the first collection I published were poems from 1984 to 2006, a period of 22 years. In between that period, I lost 700 poems. That's 10 books. Okay? Guess what? That is enough to kill anybody's passion and persistence. But guess what I did? I persevered. I persevered. And by persevering, you know that there would still be roadblocks on the way. You're doing what you're doing, you know it is good, you are convinced that what you are doing is really what you should be doing. But guess what? When you have those roadblocks, take a sigh of relief, pull back, be patient. Why am I saying be patient? Your viewers might want to know that as an African, as somebody who's lived and observed nature, the lion is not the king of the jungle because it is the most powerful in the jungle. No. The lion has one thing that every other animal in the jungle does not have, and that is patience. If you exercise patience in every endeavor, you would certainly get to the realization of it. And now, once you are patient, you would realize performing becomes the proverbial piece of cake. So they should not write for love of money. They should write for love of writing. They should write for love of humanity. They should write for love of contributing towards changing the ideas or the mentalities that push humanity towards despair rather than towards hope. Thank you.
I like that. Very, very great advice. Even though I said for a young person, it's kind of for me, but we won't even focus on that. I like that. I think, okay, so lastly, I just kind of want you to, we already talked about your origin. So we talked about your origin. We read a book that's kind of recent. So could you give us maybe a little sneak peek or just a little sneak peek about your ideas for the future? Like how you plan to not switch anything up, but everything's not going to be exactly the same. So what do you plan to do in the future that's going to shake it up a little bit?
Well, there is a whole lot that I'm doing presently. I'm just actually waiting for the release of a new book of poems, which is entitled For Greatness and Freedom I Came, Fast or Fast. And this collection is just a collection that captures basically the situation the world is caught in these days. Talking about the universe of alternate facts, virtual facts, alternate realities, virtual reality, reality itself, in the era where people would take a piece of paper and they tell you, you see this piece of paper? They tell you it is white, but they make you believe what you're seeing is black. So that is the first thing. And I'm working also on that work. I'm waiting for that, but I'm finishing up a work. Like you're asking something to change the world a little bit. I'm finishing up a work on Black revolutionary and visionary voices from pre-colony to post-independence and beyond, meaning the leading Black voices. I failed to mention, when I talked of just being around Tuskegee, I have really big size shoes to fit myself in. I hope one day my feet will grow bigger to just fit into those shoes. Because I didn't mention somebody like Zora Neale Hurston. She was born 6 miles down the road from us here, okay? And I can guarantee you, I'm actually working on a chapter in that book about her writings. And I think she stands out as a unique voice, or as a unique revolutionary and visionary voice, who in her time did her best to reclaim that which belongs to the Black man and say, no, take everything from us. You have taken our bodies. You have used our energy. You've taken everything, but you are not going to take this one. And she made it a point to use language, right, that was specific to her people. And the idea of using language, I look at it as a linguist. You can make meaning of anything on earth without language. Right. So if you push yourself to embracing somebody else's language, how do you make meaning of your own universe using somebody else's reality? That's the question Zora Neale Hurston challenges us with. She says, no, I'm going to write the English as my people speak it. That's the way they speak. Right. If you want to pierce, if you want to penetrate in our universe, you want to understand our universe, then understand us the way we speak. Right. You see? Whereas others at the same time felt we should be writing to prove to these people that we are also good, we are that, we are, no, that's not what, and I think with that kind of a voice, Zora Neale Hurston carved herself a place amongst the sainthood of revolutionary and visionary Black voices.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I excuse me, I'm sorry. I wish you luck with that project, and it's been a delight to interview you. I feel inspired to go write a poem, kind of, because I just talked about all these ideas and mentalities, just all the great things. You kind of just planted a lot of ideas in my head. So yeah, this is great.
Thank you very, very much. It was my delight, and I hope you're going to have a wonderful one.
Thank you.
That those who would view your interview with me will really appreciate, and they would also learn something.
I hope so as well. I know they will. There was information that you gave, so they have you planted seeds. They just have to grow.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right.